Roadhouse 2024 is a sequel to the film Cowboy Pudding, where some rancher boys got jiggy in the mountains in a time and place where you just don't get jiggy with the other fellas. Only instead of tasty young Jack Twist dying in a car crash, or however he died, I can't remember, he changed his name to Dalton, became an MMA fighter, killed a guy during a UFC match, and then ended up in a miserable comedy for generic people whose mere existence should make the great Patrick Swayze turn over in his grave, take a long swig of whiskey, and then depart back to the great weirdness with the look of mild hatred plastered on his skeletal expression. The movie starts out with a CGI fight scene. I'm not kidding, it's a CGI fist fight where CGI Post Malone is beating a guy up. What, you couldn't train him? Or get somebody else? How shockingly lame do you have to be to make a CGI fist fight? This isn't Superman punching Zod. This isn't Neo fighting 50 Agent Smiths. It's two dudes in a sweaty room. How hard can it be? But hey, we're just getting started. So Jakey G walks in and Post Malone is like, I ain't fighting him. I naturally assumed the reason for this was that another CGI fist fight just wasn't in the budget. And this was confirmed for me when the film relied on obvious and fairly atrocious looking CGI generation for all manner of shots later on. Car crashes, exploding trucks and boats, and yes, even more of the fight scenes. Christopher Nolan, eat your heart out, you bitch. So what, you crashed a real 747 into a building and what, that makes you a filmmaker? Nah dude, cheap CGI punching, that's where the real talent is. This is as good a time as any to mention that this dumpster fire was directed by Doug Liman, which I found shocking. I finished the movie and was like, what no-name hack filmmaker am I gonna savage today? But no, this guy made Edge of Tomorrow. I love that movie. What the hell happened, Doug? You forget what funny was? Or what good action looks like? This movie has no vision, no energy, and very little of that X factor that makes a film intriguing. In short, it is poorly directed. So we're still at the beginning of the movie, and here's where we get that scene from the original Roadhouse where the wimpy old white guy comes and hires Dalton to clean up his bar. Except this is 2024, so of course he's race and gender swapped into a strong, diverse female. I personally don't really give a shit about this. I'm certainly not one of those channels that gets angry at this sort of thing, and plus the original is decidedly monochromatic, but it is worth noting for how transparent it feels in this film, like they legitimately had to fill a diversity quota. And if this kind of thing does bother you, then you're gonna be apoplectic because guess what? She ain't the only one. Blondie Dr. Love interest from the original is now a saucy Portuguese gal. Never mind that she's 16 years younger than Jake Gyllenhaal. This is Hollywood, baby. Male stars would never date a woman their own age. Just ask DiCaprio if you can pull him away from his collection of high school yearbooks. So then Jake Gyllenhaal shows up at a Hawaiian bar in the Florida Keys, and that's our Roadhouse. You got bad guys, you got punching, sometimes CGI, sometimes not, and a predictable narrative that somehow can't even nail the elegant B-movie simplicity of the original. They try to weave in this plotline about Dalton Sherlock Holmesing his way into some knowledge about the local drug gang, but it's tacked on, underwritten, and ultimately pointless, just like the rest of this slop. Now, I never really had high hopes for this movie. Almost all of these remakes end up being pretty forgettable, but what I was not expecting was for Roadhouse to be a miserable comedy. It's doing the Marvel thing, undercutting any sense of drama or gravity by injecting lame, self-reflexive jokes and irritating one-liners regardless of the tone of a scene. They're not even constructed jokes, it's just people flapping their witless lips saying nothing without even the catharsis of violence to shut them up, because when Jake does punch them, it's goddamn CGI. You know what this movie reminded me of more than once? Ant-Man. No offense to Ant-Man, it is what it is, but Roadhouse should not feel like Ant-Man. Truly, I hope whoever wrote this drivel gets a mild case of progeria. Nothing serious, I'm not a psychopath, why would you think that? But there should be some punishment for writing this categorically awful. I'll give you an example. The moment I realized I truly hated this film was towards the end, when Dalton and Conor McGregor are having a fight, and Conor McGregor slams Jake's face down on a piano, and Jake says, "This piano's out of tune," and Conor says, Sounds good to me. And then their CGI doppelgangers kept fighting. Ah yes, truly outstanding comedy. I'm so glad you interrupted a violent and dramatic confrontation for this brilliant Shakespearean interjection. And yes, Patrick Swayze's Dalton had one-liners as well, but they were funny. And more to the point, they were appropriately timed, relatively subtle, and fitting in with the character's background as a student of philosophy. Gyllenhaal's Dalton is different, and that's fine. It's good that Jake didn't try to be Swayze. He leans on his own natural charisma, and it almost works, but the film lets him down. And I got the sense he kinda knew the movie sucked, so he didn't try that hard. And I think this points to Roadhouse's biggest failure. It has no identity, no soul, it's just so generic. It's not a B-movie like the original, it has none of that cheesy fun or campiness, it's too bashful to even include nudity, except if you enjoyed Conor McGregor's butt, I guess. It fails as a serious action movie because of the embarrassing comedy and lame filmmaking, and what's left is just a bunch of, I don't know, ingredients. Yeah, sorry folks, the restaurant has no chef, so we just chucked some raw beef, tater tots, frozen peas, and a case of Budweiser into a bowl. We call this recipe the Roadhouse. And that's it. That's the movie. Like I said, the writers can go chew a hemorrhoid and then sit in the corner with the dunce hat on to think about what they've done. And Doug Liman should be ashamed of himself. And that's Roadhouse 2024. Don't watch it. Now I'm gonna drop this mic and go mix a martini. I'll see you later.